Hey guys, so yeah, again, another chapter I was not expecting to make. And yeah, actually, I'm going to link. Okay, here's the thing. I'm gonna link uh in the description. I'm gonna link to the pretty much page of where I read these chapters. And if anyone can tell me as to much how to get in contact with the translator of these chapters, let me know because honest to God, even if honest to God, this chapter should not have come out this week. It should not. It just shouldn't have. So like, yeah, someone, again, I'm gonna link it down below. If anyone knows how to get in contact with this particular like admin translator, please let me know because it's kind of frustrating in order to see this person. Well, while I'm kind of a hypocrite, obviously, it is frustrating to see this person like translate these chapters even before they're supposed to come out, pretty much. So yeah, um, but anyway, I guess just getting into the chapter itself. Eden Zero, chapter 124. So, getting into the big reveal of this chapter, we learn that Elsie and Justice, aka James Holloway, were the prince and princess of I don't know if it's two planets or just two kingdoms, but yeah, they were both a prince and princess long ago of two different kingdoms in the pretty much K-Day cosmos. And if I understand the context of their conversation mid-battle correctly, Elsie was basically responsible for inciting a civil war between these two kingdoms. Like, I don't know if that's exactly it, but it's just in the dialogue, it more than likely sounds like that's to be the case. And it's all due to her exposing the truth the truth about either their government or the galactic government as a whole, and with the end with the end result of it being basically a classic case of basically sacrificing a few in order to save many more. Because it sounds like, because just from the way that the French Elsie describes what happened on her side of things, it sounds like the government was almost planning a full-on purge of some kind, but by pretty much declaring that one of the governments was almost planning a purge, but by declaring civil war, she pretty much saved many more lives apparently because of it. Again, and I'll be honest. I'll be honest. Despite how insane and crazy this all sounds, for me, it's yet again another case of telling us but not showing us. I mean, just from knowing this does. I mean, don't get me wrong. Just from knowing a lot more background here and the basis for their argument, it of the feud between Justice and Elsie, it does provide a lot more context for Justice's actions and his motivations. And we do get a little bit of a flashback, but the flashback in itself mostly served to establish Justice and Elsie's past relationship. But it's one of those things where I still need to see the actual details of this war itself, or at least what led up to it, in order to fully like I think feel any sort of emotional connection to what's going on right now, or at least because if I don't if I don't it's the thing where if I don't see what occurred in the past, then there's very little keeping me emotionally hooked into this feud between Elsie and Justice. Like again, I don't. I'm not saying I'm not invested because I am. There's just enough emotional tension between Justice and Elsie in order to keep me invested. But in order for me to truly like get hooked into this whole feud of theirs, I basically I need to see what happened in the past, and I'm hoping. Again, we pretty much got a little bit of in this chapter, so I can only assume that was the little bit we got. What was the lead into maybe next chapter, where we're gonna get a lot more backstory of what happened in the past. I'm hoping for that anyway. Um, and I'll give credit where it's due, though. This chapter really provided insight into Justice and how, in many respects, you can tell he really doesn't want to fight Elsie, and a lot of what he's doing is coming from a place of feeling betrayed. Because even though he is still holding on to a couple of misguided ideals about the law and government, I think he also does this kind of at least acknowledge, at least silently, that Elsie is right about how having ideals is one thing, but having the power and will to enact them is another. And even if he doesn't want to admit she's right, there we're even if she doesn't want to admit she's right. Where things get a little muddled, however, is again those feelings of betrayal and how Justice right now, he's being purely driven by those feelings. He has the power, but at this point he's basically letting his will and drive in order to do what's right, basically be blinded by the very power that the Union Army has granted him. So it's in Justice's mind. So right now, Justice's psychology right now is very muddled, and it's created a very unhealthy contradiction of his mind. Of he has the power, he just doesn't have the will in order to do what's right. He's everything that's fueling him. It's only just power and betrayal that's fueling him. It's not power and the will in order to do what's right. It's just power and betrayal. Those are the two driving forces that are really just kind of that are driving him right now, and he can't let go of the betrayal, unfortunately. And he kind of needs to, though, if he ever wants to do really wants to do what else he's talking about. Also, I don't know if anyone else got this feeling, but after reading this chapter, I'm convinced more than ever that Prince Elsie's like bodyguards are more than just her crewmates. I think like her those Prince two guys that she's always hanging around, her right hand man, I guess. I think they are more than just her crewmates, and I think despite what Creed said, I not only think they're perfectly aware of who Elsie actually is, but I wouldn't be surprised if we were to find out that Elsie's like second and third in command or whatnot were once like knights or even counselors that served under the royal family of under like Elsie's family, the royal family of on her side of things. Because that would actually go a long way towards explaining their seemingly unrelenting loyalty to her, and how quickly they pretty much are to follow her orders, or at least in comparison to every the other crewmates that Elsie has under her command, who tend to like question Elsie's decisions a little more. And if this is indeed the case, then there's two questions that need to be answered. Is Elsie aware of who these two are? And who exactly are Elsie's parents, and what was their role in all of what happened? Like right now, this chapter, it definitely opened with a lot of questions about Elsie's like parentage and what her family was like. Who basically are her family in this case? I really kind of need to know that. With all that being said, Shiki comes into contact with a hooded robot at the end of the chapter, and yeah, I don't think it's far-fetched to say I think we've just met Master. I think we've just met Masters. We've just met Master Zenolith, or to be more precise, his consciousness in a robot body. I mean, those first words, just seeing his first words alone, already imply that, and with everything we've learned about this world, it's even less surprising that the possibility of Zenolith having transferred his mind into a robot body before dying. So now, like with this reveal, we're basically headed into Shiki, like I think like Shiki's gonna be learning a lot more of his power on the fly here. Like we're basically like even in the midst of all this craziness happening, we're still gonna have like from Shiki from learning something about his power now, and I it's one of those things where I'm always kind of a little iffy on the fact of characters like Prince learning a new ability on the fly. I think they need like a whole like chapter dedicated to them learning something new. But in this case, I can kind of forgive it a little more because well, not only of what's going on between Justice and Elsie, but we also have to remind that Shura is on his way, and I think it's best that from Shiki learns something fast and now, even before Shura arrives and fucks everything up. So yeah, I hope Shiki's a fast learner because he's gonna have to learn something new really quick. um, Now, let's talk about the title, Kiss and Tell. And when going into this chapter, just based off that title, I knew Masha was more than likely going to dive into some romantic elements between Justice and Elsie. And while it is something I just wanted Masha to avoid for the sake of the comparisons between Urza and Jalal I know are going to spark because of this chapter, I also like the way he handled it because even though we didn't get a ton of backstory on Elsie's past, there's an aspect to the romantic tension between Elsie and Justice that feels very reminiscent of Romeo and Juliet, and I kind of like it for that alone. And it is kind of it also is a little bit of a subversion that even if they loved each other in the past, it's a spark that isn't necessarily there either. So I'm cool with that as well. Again, I would have personally liked Masha to avoid any romance altogether, but I do like how he handled it here. It's a little bit of a reverse of how the Jalal and Urza thing was. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Elsie Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.